Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. Tonight we're bringing you a special report on some of the most critical issues impacting Long Island. We begin with the problem of segregation. The region has consistently found itself ranked among the most racially segregated metropolitan areas in the country. Some housing advocates point to local control, which gives communities the power to dictate what is built in their neighborhoods, as a major reason for the divide, which impacts not only where people live, but where they send their kids to school. Elaine Gross is president of the nonprofit civil rights organization Erase Racism, and she recently took a closer look at this issue for the NYU Furman Center in a piece titled Housing Discrimination and Local Control. She joins us now. Elaine, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, Elaine, what exactly is local control, and in your opinion, how has it contributed to making Long Island one of the most segregated metropolitan areas in the country?
Local control derives from home rule, which is when the state provides local municipalities with some powers. And if we're talking about housing, we're talking about control over land use. And that has played a role in perpetuating the racial segregation that already existed on Long Island. So we didn't become among the 10 most racially segregated overnight. And at one point, that was caused by overt racial hatred. But now the local control allows communities to exclude African Americans, let's say, or non-whites in general, by so-called legitimate means.
Can you give us an example, a historical example, where local control led to segregation?
Well, of course, Levittown is used as the historical example because at that time, the federal government essentially gave the power to the developer to exclude African Americans from those homes. They did that not only initially by saying they would not lease or sell, but then by putting racial covenants in the deeds, which said that if you were not Caucasian, you couldn't buy a home. A person living there could not resell you a home to you.
Wow. So you're right that on Long Island there are 3 million people spread out across 2 counties, 2 cities, 13 towns, and 97 incorporated villages. How does this fragmentation contribute to the problem, especially with regards to education?
So with education, we have 125 school districts, and the districts decide their own boundaries. Essentially, it's the deciding who's in, who's out. And so with the housing segregation that we have, and with the school district boundaries mirroring that housing segregation, we have very segregated schools out here. We looked at a 12-year period between 2004 and 2016. We found that we started with 5 intensely segregated school districts. That means 90 to 100% non-white. We ended up with 11. So that's more than a doubling. And in those schools, we had more than a tripling of students going to those intensely segregated schools.
Now, Elaine, you make a good case for the serious problems of local control. On the other hand, when you take control out of the hands of local communities that are directly impacted by the decisions that they make and give it to distant bureaucrats who don't have direct skin in the game, doesn't that create problems of its own? And is there a way, is there a happy medium, is there a way to give some local control to local communities that doesn't devolve into segregation and NIMBYism, you know, the not in my backyard phenomena?
So that was part of the discussion. You mentioned at the opening that I had written a piece related to this. That was the discussion we were having at the NYU Furman Center. We do need to think more seriously about public goods. And if we have been seeing the same result with local control, it really suggests that we need to think about what happens with public goods. Because people will sometimes, we have seen it over and over again, look in a very narrow way about their own self-interest and not really think about public goods like housing for all, good schools for all, et cetera.
What about the Mount Laurel example, in New Jersey? That's a model that developed over years through litigation and legislation that in effect gives the state the power to determine state policy over affordable housing, but lets the local community kind of shape it and control it, and lets developers who want to build affordable housing have a say in challenging local communities if the plan is not sufficient. Mm-hmm. Is that a model that's useful?
Well, it certainly is. I mean, we don't have a lot of models, so that's part of the problem. Yeah. But that certainly is a model that has been able to do more than we've been able to do here. The idea that the state would say, look, this is a common need and this is a public good, and therefore we shall have housing of these types across the region, in all the communities. Mm-hmm. And as you say, have some way of challenging the NIMBYism if people just stay in that lane.
Yeah. So what don't people in Long Island realize about the impact of the segregation that exists in its region, do you think?
Well, I think one thing they don't realize is that there's a lot of research that talks about the benefits of racially integrated learning environments, and also that not just Long Island, but the nation is really becoming a nation with more people of color. Mm-hmm. And we really, as we're going to be a vibrant region, we need to be taking full advantage of what all people have to offer and not excluding people. Mm-hmm. and not helping them reach their full potential. So there is an impact obviously on the people that are being discriminated against, but there's a broader impact as well.
We have only about 30 seconds left, but is there legislation in the works to deal with the problem of local control and of the segregation that exists in Long Island right now?
There isn't legislation specifically related to this issue. There is legislation that speaks to a portion of the housing discrimination piece, and it's called Ban Income Bias. Mm-hmm. And it would amend the human rights law so that legal source of income was a protected class. And you couldn't say, no, I'm not going to accept your veterans benefits or your alimony payments or your housing choice voucher. I'm only going to look at your wage earnings to determine whether you can live in my apartment.
Okay, Elaine, we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this issue.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.